Daniel Boone and His Adventures by Emily Kennedy. On November 2, 1734, in a log cabin in Pennsylvania, Sarah Morgan gave birth to her sixth son. She looked up at her husband, Squire Boone, and smiled. "What a handsome boy he is! What should we name him?" she asked. "What do you think of Daniel?" "Daniel Boone." "Doesn't it have a nice ring to it?" he replied. "Yes, that sounds right. Hello there, little Daniel," she whispered to the baby. Little did Squire and Sarah know then that Daniel Boone would soon be a household name throughout America. Daniel did not go to school or college, but his mother taught him how to read and write. It's a good thing she did, because if she hadn't, he wouldn't have been able to write about his adventures, and we would not have known a thing about him. She would read stories to him, and Gulliver's Travels was his favorite. Daniel wanted to be like Gulliver, find new places and meet new people. He loved to explore and go on adventures. Sometimes he would even scare his parents by disappearing for hours on end without telling anyone. His parents would worry that he'd been kidnapped by the natives or eaten by a wild animal. On Daniel's 12th birthday, his father gave him a rifle. Soon Daniel was shooting better than his father. He would take his rifle to the woods and practice hunting small animals like rabbits and squirrels. He would cook these small animals on the firewood that he collected and sleep under the open, starry sky. One day, Daniel and his father went to the woods to hunt. They walked through the woods looking for game. Suddenly, they were faced with an angry bear. "Watch out!" yelled his father. But Daniel had already picked up his rifle. He looked the bear squarely in the eye, and bam! He shot it. But the bear was large, and the bullets did not kill it. Angered, it charged at Daniel. Quick as lightning, Daniel took out his knife and held it out. The bear ran straight against the knife and was killed. Instantly, Daniel Boone became a legend. Nobody had heard of a 12-year-old boy killing a bear with a knife before. At the age of 21, Daniel married Rebecca Bryan and moved to Yadkin Valley. Married life kept him happy for a while. All a man needs to lead a happy life is a good gun, a good horse, and a good wife. And I have them all, he was known to have said. But the explorer within Daniel could not sit idle for very long. He looked toward the mountains in the west and the endless forests stretching beyond. He was itching to hunt the wild animals in the forest. For many years he wandered the wilderness, hunting for survival. On one of these hunting trips, he began a conversation with a native. "No hunter in the whole of America is better than I," Daniel boasted. "Well," said the native, "you aren't a hunter if you haven't hunted in the great forest of the West." "What is this great forest that you speak of?" asked Daniel. "It is a forest so thick that even sunlight cannot get through. At noon, it looks like late evening. There are many animals, some of which are unheard of," the native said. "Where is this forest? I must visit it," cried Daniel. "Kind native, will you take me there?" "Of course I will," said the native. And so he set off with the native and 4 other men. For 5 long weeks they traveled on horseback, but it was worth it in the end. After a long and dreary march through mountains and hills, they found themselves on the banks of the Red River. They surveyed the land around them. The view took their breath away. There was only greenery as far as the eye could see. Wild animals roamed freely, oblivious to their presence. They put up a log shelter and lived there for 6 months, surviving on the game they killed. One day, when they were admiring the beauty of nature, a troop of Shawnees suddenly appeared out of nowhere and captured them. For 7 days and 7 nights, they were held prisoners. The conditions in the camp were horrible. They weren't given enough food to eat, water to drink, or a place to sleep. But Daniel never lost hope. He watched the natives and saw a chance to escape on the 7th night after they had fallen asleep. Slowly and softly, Daniel and the hunters crept out of the camp and ran back to their log cabin. The incident shook up the others so badly that they all returned home. However, Daniel and his brother-in-law, John Stewart, stayed on. They lived in the wild for 2 years. Sometimes other hunters joined them for a while, but they left sooner or later. After 2 years, Daniel returned home to his family. He spoke so much of this wondrous place that many others wanted to settle there. 5 families, including his own, set off from Yadkin to Kentucky. Soon it became apparent that people would continuously need to travel between the east and the west. Daniel and a few other men opened up a trail to make traveling easier. Chop, chop, chop. They used their axes to cut off the undergrowth and make a path. This was the beginning of the famous Wilderness Road, as it is still called. People began to call the area Boonesboro, and lots of people began moving there. Daniel realized that he needed to protect the people living there, so he built a strong fort for them. Local native tribes, such as the Cherokee and the Shawnee, did not like Daniel's encroachment on their land. One day, when he was hunting in the woods, he noticed some natives following his tracks. Though he had noticed them, they did not see him. "If they follow me home, they will surely harm my family," he thought. So he led them on a wild goose chase, turning this way and that, over hills and through valleys, in an attempt to shake them off. But they were adamant. 3 hours later, they were still following him. "I need to think of something else fast," he told himself. As he was walking, he stumbled upon a wild grapevine. Suddenly, Daniel had an idea. Daniel cut the vine near the root. He held the vine and walked back. Then he sprang with all his might, and whee! Daniel swung 20 feet away from where he was and let go of the vine. He fell to the ground and ran in a different direction. When the natives came to the place where his tracks ended, they searched and searched, but could not proceed and gave up their quest. Daniel reached home safely. But the natives did not give up. One day, Daniel's daughter, Jemina, was playing by the river. Suddenly, out of nowhere, 5 natives darted out of the woods, seized her, and took her back to their camp. But Jemina was a smart young girl. She tore out bits of her dress from time to time and dropped them, creating a trail for whoever came to rescue her. As soon as Daniel heard that his precious daughter had been taken hostage, he set off with 4 other men to rescue her. They followed the trail, and early on the 2nd morning discovered the natives. They put up a brave fight, took Jemina, and went back to the fort. One day, a group of 90 natives found Daniel and his group of companions. Though they put up a great fight, Daniel and his men were outnumbered. They were kidnapped and carried back to the natives' campsite. For 2 months, Daniel was kept there, but the natives grew to like and admire his cheerful disposition and his hunting prowess. They adopted Daniel and made him a part of the tribe. One day, he overheard the natives planning to attack his fort in Boonesboro. Daniel was shocked. He had to save his precious settlement. In the dark of night, Daniel quietly slipped out. He walked for 4 days till he reached Boonesboro. On this entire journey, Daniel only had one meal because he could not get any food. He did not dare shoot an animal in case he was heard. Finally, he reached the fort, warned the men, and the fort was saved. Daniel continued to live his life in the wild, moving farther west. Finally, at the age of 85, he died in Missouri, still a happy hunter.